Alright, today I thought I'd talk about this news about Dynasty Warriors 9 Empires. Now, I generally don't care about the Empires games. I think that they're just the same thing with a bunch of menus. but there's some interesting tidbits here I think are going to dictate the future of at least the Dynasty Warriors side of this franchise. There's a couple things here. The 94 officers that appear in the original game, in addition to 700 generics. There are no plans for any new officers. Now, they have done new characters in Empires games before. I think the last time they did it was 7 Empires. So I'm not going to go into exactly what this means, but we're going to go through the rest of this. We're going to skim through it. The menus and stuff I don't really care about. I'm going to try to keep this video short. Unlike Dynasty Warriors 9, Dynasty Warriors 9 Empires will not include open world elements. Instead, players will have an overhead view of mainland China from which they can determine a base to attack in the strategy phase, and battles will unfold in large castles and their surrounding areas. I'm interested in how this is going to work because one of the things about Dynasty Warriors 9, as fun as it was to just use the grappling hook and just kill the commander right away, none of the battles in the towns they didn't feel like real battles. The towns are way too small. I mean, this is a problem in like almost every open world game. I feel like when people only complain about that kind of thing, that suspension of disbelief that's needed to think that this is an entire city when you can jog through it in like 30 seconds. Every open world game has that problem. The only ones that don't are like the really expensive ones, like the really big budget ones, like the Rockstar games and stuff. But it is definitely an issue here. You did feel like, it wasn't really a real living city. There were barely any people in it. And it felt awkward because you had to fight in like merchant stands and stuff. And the officers would get stuck on the top of it. It was just very janky. The best battles in the game was probably the true New Hefei Castle. I definitely think that was like the best battle in the game. It definitely felt like an actual Muso level. So I'm interested to see like how the fights will take place. Like, are they just going to use the same assets? Because if they are, then we're just going to be fighting in the same small, unrealistic bases and cities that don't look like anybody could really commence any operations there at all. We'll see what happens though. Okay, the rest of this is about the game itself. I'm probably not going to play this game, so I'm just going to skip over that. Uh, while we weren't planning to adopt an open world, there were many fans who desired it. I don't know who these people are. They're trying to minimize the importance of it as much as possible. We'll see how that goes. Now, the most important stuff is these two tidbits here. As for why there are no additional officers in the game, that's because we've added too many officers and we're trying to give more depth to each officer. Of course, as the number of officers may increase if we make another numbered entry next. Now, this could mean a couple of things. First, I think this is kind of BS because we already saw a ton of characters still cloned in that promotional video they put out a couple of days ago. Sunsei still had the pizza cutter, and there were a bunch of other clones in that video too. It doesn't seem like they're going to be decloning anybody. It seems like they might. I think they're going to be reassigning the DLC weapons to the characters that they were supposed to go to, but at the same time, they show Lu Linky at the end of the trailer still using the sword and shield. So I'm not sure what to expect here. I just don't understand why this game is being made. I mean, generally in the game industry or just in the media industry at all, when you make something that's critically maligned and is relatively a failure, generally as a company you want to distance yourself from it. You want to just move on to the next game, or in a more drastic case, you want to just give that side of the franchise a break entirely and come back in a few years when people have forgotten how pissed off they were at the last game and give it another shot. And that's probably what's going to happen here. I don't think Dynasty Warriors 10 is going to come anytime soon. But my concern with this is that one of the reasons why they're not adding any new officers and they're seemingly not really decloning anybody outside of the characters that got DLC in the Dynasty Warriors 9 vanilla season passes is that they're probably going to scrap the flow attack system again. And I can't describe how much that angers me as somebody who's been around since the beginning. This is like the second time this has happened. This happened back when Dynasty Warrior 6 came out. The Renbu system was very flawed. You had to just button mash square, and you couldn't do anything else. Square didn't even chain into triangle, and by the time you got your full move set, the map was almost over. You're pretty much at the end of the level. You had like maybe a couple generics, a couple objectives, and then like the commander was left. I actually think that system was a little bit better than what they had in the future games because they had like universal guard canceling and dodge canceling. They had counters and stuff. That combat system actually felt really good. It was just a little bit kind of veering a little bit too much in the direction of what people think Muso games are, where you just mash the square button and everything dies. There definitely was a lot of emphasis on mashing the square button in that game. I remember I wanted them to actually improve on it. I didn't really want them to go back to charge attacks, but then um, this was about 11 years ago. I guess they did a presentation or a press meeting for the announcement of Dynasty Warrior 7, and one of the big things that they announced on their presentation slides was the fact that the charge system was coming back. I don't quote me on this, but I remember people cheering there when they announced that. And here we are now. You know, they decloned everybody. They made everybody unique for better or for worse. Definitely are a lot of really crappy movesets in Dynasty Warriors 8 XL. I think people have really selective nostalgia with that game. There's a lot of movesets that just straight up don't work or they aren't fun to use, but they did make everybody unique, and I think they deserve some credit for that. It's just weird that they went back to the drawing board, they redid the combat, and the combat, for what it's worth, is relatively fun. It's pretty responsive. I liked how you got mechanics like jump cancels and stuff. It's just that the movesets were too small. You would end up repeating your entire moveset in like a couple seconds or like several times on the same officer. It just got really repetitive, and then you had the clones just amplifying that problem even more. I really think that if they had given it another chance, assuming that they're not going to give it another chance, that it could have been a really great combat system. They could have added more moves, more mechanics, and then decloned at least a fraction more of the characters, and then maybe did like DLC or an expansion or something and make everybody unique again, and then just expand upon it from there. I feel like this genre is not going to go anywhere if they keep using the charge system. I definitely do like games like Pirate Warriors 3. I didn't play that game as much as like Squillo and other people, but I liked how that game, you know, it didn't quite have the charge system. It had, you know, triangle square inputs and stuff like that, and you had dodge offsetting, so you could actually get to the attack you wanted right away. I think one of the things that really makes the charge system really bog you down after a while is the fact that you have to get through so many normal attacks to get to the attack you want. And in Samurai Warriors 5, I know a lot of you haven't played it yet, but you've watched me suffer through that game. That's definitely a problem in that game. Officers have random hyper armor. They'll just walk through attacks, and if you manage to juggle them, you can barely even get to your charge attack before they tech out. It makes the game feel really sloppy. It feels like you're not playing it right, but at the same time, you're playing it exactly the way that they've designed it. It's just not really well or intelligently designed. I've always wanted them to actually just take, you know, a departure from the charge system and just stick with it. But it really feels like, I don't know who it is at the company. I don't know if it's the people actually making the game or it's the suits of the company telling them to do this. But every time they try to revamp the Dynasty Warriors attack system or the combat system, uh, you know, they just don't take the constructive criticism. They go back to charge attacks. And I think that they need to actually stick with an evolution and give it time to, you know, sit in the oven for a bit. And this is a problem we've had for a long time. Dynasty Warriors 9 combat is fun. It's brain dead. It's brain dead. It's really easy, but it's fun for what it is. It's just the fact that, you know, there's not that many movesets in the game. They're not all created equal, just like Samurai Warriors 5. And the fact that there's so many clones, you know, you can generally check out the good movesets pretty quickly, and most of the good movesets are in the DLC. I was really hoping that they would expand upon it and expand upon the design they had of the weapons in the DLC. You can go back and watch my old videos on those if you're interested, if you didn't pick them up yourself. But from what I'm reading here, it does seem like the next game is probably going to be a reboot. I think they're going to pull a Samurai Warriors 5. After playing that game for about 40 hours, I'm definitely pretty frightened at the possibility of that, because Samurai Warriors 5 does not make good use of the fact that it's a reboot at all. In no way does it does it do that. The R1 attacks are nice, but at the same time they trivialize a lot of things. They kind of reduce a lot of the relevancy on the charge attacks, which is good in a way, but they feel like they're so much better. They actually tend to ignore a lot of the tech rules that the officers have, whereas the charge attacks feel really clunky and slow and just awkward to use because of how you can't even get to like a charge attack and a juggle without them teching out. I don't want them to do that. Samurai Warriors 5 in general is a pretty bad reboot. For one thing, it's still using the same charge system. You know, there's all the clones, and Just like basic things in the combat system don't work. Like you have the Naginata moveset, which barely functions. You can't even juggle enemies on it with it outside of easy. Uh, I don't want them to reboot it if they're just going to go back to the charge system. If they're going to reboot it and they're going to actually iterate on the flow attack system, I think that will be great. Or if they come up with something else, but if they go back to the charge system, you know what that means? That means that everybody's going to be a clone again. There's going to be very few unique movesets, and it's probably going to take another couple mainline games for them to actually declone everybody. Now, it's really weird that we're going through this again because just like 7 years ago, they got everybody unique, and then they went to 9 and they redid it, and then people complained about it, and now it seems like they just don't know how to take constructive criticism. We see other games, launching in poor states and stuff, and they're able to turn it around for better or for worse. Whether they make any money back is anybody's guess. It generally takes a lot of money to actually completely revamp a game, especially something like Dynasty Warriors 9, where there's just a lot of core problems that can't be fixed with patches. But I would like them to try. I feel like I'm going to lose a lot of interest in this genre, more than I already have, if they go back to the charge system. We've seen a lot of better stuff come out lately, and it's just a shame. I really miss Basara. Basara had its problems, of course. Basara 4 had very gimmicky, pretty crappy level design in general. But the combat was unmatched, and it was nice how, coming from Koei Muso Games, you actually could get access to most of your moves right away. It felt very fluid. They had tag mechanics and stuff, and just nothing Koei has put out has really been trying to push the envelope. And I'm really frightened that Dynasty Warriors 10 is going to be more of the same. Anyway, I just thought I'd let people know about this. It does really seem like the reason why they're not decloning anybody is because they're already probably in the preliminary stages of making Dynasty Warriors 10, and chances are it's probably going to be another hard reboot. And like I said, after you guys seeing me suffer through Samurai Warriors 5 and all the problems that game has, that doesn't really instill a lot of confidence in me. The problem with Samurai Warriors 5 is, they tried to do a hard reboot. They redesigned everybody, but they don't have enough unique movesets for everybody, so it doesn't even feel like a good reboot because now there's like 25 clones in the game, and there's a bunch of unique NPCs that serve no purpose in gameplay. I do think it's cool. I don't want people to misunderstand me. I do think it's cool that the important NPCs that would normally be generics, it's cool how they have unique voice actors and character models, because that's always been a problem in Muso games in general, is when they try to make you care about somebody who's not playable and they just have a generic model. Like I remember when they announced Sima Yi's children in Dynasty Warrior 6, and they were using the generic strategist model, so they legit looked older than him. They looked like they could be like his father or his uncle or something. I think from a narrative standpoint, it is really cool that they made those characters unique. But I feel that making them playable just amplifies the problem that there's already too many clones in the game. I'm not really sure what to expect. In terms of Samurai Warriors 5, I think there's a lot minor things they could do that could make that game a lot better. The game loses its luster really fast, and it's not entirely because of the clones. The clones are a big factor, yes, but the way the progression is structured is really flawed. By the time you finish the story, you're going to be tired of the game. You can already make the best weapons in the game. You can make best in slot weapons in like a literal minute of messing around with the menus. And they want you to grind in the Citadel mode, but by the time you grind in the Citadel mode, you'll have nothing left. It feels like the progression systems and the story mode were like designed by different times or like by different people. The things like the skill point system and stuff, like there's no reason why all of that couldn't have just been given to you by leveling up. Almost all of it is stat boost. There's nothing interesting in there that really changes the mechanics, which is a huge step back from Dynasty Warriors 9, because that game had a lot of loot that actually legit changed how you played, and I thought that was really cool, and I was expecting that in Samurai Warriors 5, but it ended up just being really half-baked. The game is fun to play, but I feel like if that's how they're going to do reboots from now on, I would rather than just not do reboots at all, because it doesn't make sense logistically to completely revamp everything, but then still have a lot of the antiquated stuff around, and then they can't even make everybody unique. And this is a problem that's going to persist probably for the foreseeable future, because Muso games in general, the crossover, the franchise or collaboration ones, whatever you want to call them, they make so much more money than the mainline ones, and I feel like the higher ups are just not giving any money to the people making the mainline games, and that's why Samurai Warriors 5 is likely the way it is. It probably had a very short dev cycle. Obviously, it has not been in development for 7 years. I would be surprised if it was in development for even 2 years. It's probably more like a year and a half or something. A lot of aspects of the game, the more you play it, the more it feels like they were added in the last few months of development. Things like the skill trees in particular and how the progression works. You have to play through the entire story to get everything in Citadel mode, and by that point, you can already make weapons that trivialize everything. There's no real reason to max out the shop or the dojo at all. Actually, the dojo is worth maxing out. The other stuff is basically pointless. Once you get it to level 4, you can already just trivialize everything in the game. It feels very disjointed. I do hope that they will patch that game, but it just doesn't instill a lot of confidence in me that mainline Muso games are going to get anywhere near the attention and the love and the development time and the resources that they used to. Samurai Warriors 5 feels incredibly half-finished. It feels like an early access games in ways, mostly due to the progression, for one thing. The clones, obviously, but the progression too. The progression system being so grindy, it feels like it's there to hide the fact that the game does not really have much content outside of the story. And the Citadel mode is nice. You can use whoever you want. The levels are a lot shorter. You get a little bit more of a quick bite of the gameplay. But by the time you unlock it all, there's nothing left to do in the game. And I'm sorry if I felt like I hated the game. I don't hate Samurai Warriors 5, but I feel it's a pretty dangerous game because I feel like that's the kind of quality we're going to get from mainline games from here on out. Games that they aren't terrible, they're more than playable, but they're lacking in very obvious ways, and it just makes you wish that the game had gotten more dev time, or they had done like betas or something, or focus groups, or any of those things to improve those things before launch. Right now, I do think that game could get a lot better with patches. For one, they could improve the customization. The customization is very, very lacking in Samurai Warriors 5. Generally, the best things to take is just a cookie cutter build. You take attack up, you take range, attack speed, you take slay, thunder. The one ability that gives you heals in your Muso bar and your health bar every 1,000 hits. Things like that you just take on everybody, and you can generally just destroy the game. There's no real interesting builds to speak of. There's nothing interesting on the rare weapons either. I spent a good 5-6 hours trying to get those weapons, and then I get one, and it's worse than the best in slot weapon I made like 15 hours ago. This is why I haven't really been playing mainline. I haven't been playing Muso games in general much lately. They've all felt so half-finished and poorly designed, and there's just been so much other interesting stuff coming out. I'm really thankful that people have been watching the other stuff that I've been doing. I haven't really wanted to abandon Muso. It's just that every time one comes out, it's got these glaring flaws, and I just get burnt out on the game really quickly. Samurai Warriors 5 in general has like almost no meat to it at all outside of the story. If you like the narrative, then there's a lot to offer, but once you beat that, the game is basically done. You have basically accomplished every challenge unless you want to go for trophies or whatever. I don't know what the trophies entail, but I'm not a trophy hunter. I don't really think that's an excuse for how the game is designed. You have poor skill points, poor skill trees. You have poor weapon customization, and just really grindy progression. Hopefully, if they do reboot Dynasty Warriors 10, they won't do more of the same. Hopefully, they'll give it an honest try. If they're going to reboot things to try to reduce the roster. One of the problems with the Dynasty Warriors games, and now Samurai Warriors as well, since we have so many clones in the latest game, is that they just have too many characters to really make any meaningful changes to the battle system. So I hope that if they do end up doing a hard reboot for Dynasty Warriors 10, that it will be better than Samurai Warriors 5. Anyway, I just thought I'd share my thoughts. I'll have more videos coming in the next few days. Thanks for watching.